$3 million worth of illegal weed found in an elaborate growing operation near Jacktown. And tonight we're getting a first-hand look inside the big bust. News 4's Caitlin Ogle went along with law enforcement.
The Special Operations Team of District 23 says these illegal growers were about to take their operation to the next level before they got busted.
What if I told you 14 years in prison could start with a single seed in your garden shed? Somewhere across Britain right now, an ordinary gardener is unknowingly breaking the law, tending a plant that looks completely harmless. Behind hedgerows and greenhouses, 20 everyday crops carry consequences most homeowners never imagine. Hidden fines, hospital visits, even criminal records. Some hide behind pretty flowers. Others disguise themselves as common houseplants. Few gardeners know where the line sits until it's too late. From toxic sap that scars children for life, to seeds that quietly build a criminal case against you, the danger is closer than you think. Stay with us. We're about to reveal the truth your garden's been hiding. Number 1. The plant that gets people arrested. Derek Hallow had grown vegetables on his allotment for 11 years before a knock on his door changed everything. Police had received a tip from a neighbor who noticed the smell drifting over the fence. Behind his shed sat 3 cannabis plants, grown, he later said, purely out of curiosity. That curiosity cost him a criminal record. Cannabis sits under the Misuse of Drugs Act, and the law leaves no room to negotiate. Growing it for personal use, for hemp, for seeds, or without a rare home office license, all count as the same offense. CBD oil on supermarket shelves and prescription cannabis create the illusion that home cultivation is somehow tolerated. It isn't. Police use thermal drones to spot the heat signature of grow lamps through roofs. Neighbors who recognize the smell or the leaf shape report it more often than people realize. What feels like 2 harmless plants in a greenhouse is treated by the courts as Class B drug cultivation, carrying unlimited fines and up to 14 years behind bars for anything resembling commercial scale. Derek's case never reached a courtroom. A caution and a criminal record were enough to end his allotment tenancy for good. His story is common enough that police forces publish it as a warning every spring, right when planting season begins. Number 2. The root that eats houses. A single root system, buried meters underground, can push through a concrete driveway like it's wet sand. That is the quiet threat homeowners face with Japanese knotweed, a plant that isn't actually illegal to own, but becomes a legal nightmare the moment it spreads. Under the Wildlife and Countryside Act, letting knotweed cross into a neighbor's garden opens the door to lawsuits worth thousands of pounds. Mortgage lenders now refuse loans on properties where surveyors spot it nearby, sometimes wiping tens of thousands off a home's value overnight. The plant looks almost decorative, with heart-shaped leaves and delicate white flowers in late summer. That appearance hides a root network capable of lying dormant for years before resurfacing through tarmac, drains, or foundations. Disposing of it incorrectly, even a small cutting tossed into a compost heap, can trigger fines up to £5,000. Specialist contractors charge thousands just to contain it, and DIY removal almost always backfires, spreading fragments rather than eliminating them. For a plant with no flashy warning label, knotweed has become one of the most financially destructive things a British homeowner can discover growing near their fence line. Number 3. The flower that burns skin. Along riverbanks each summer, tall white flowers stretch toward the sky, tempting children to pick them for bouquets. Few realize that brushing against giant hogweed can leave burns severe enough to send a child to hospital. The sap contains chemicals that react violently to sunlight, causing blistering that can scar skin for years. Growing to nearly 5 meters with a hollow, purple-blotched stem, giant hogweed is banned from being planted or allowed to spread under the Wildlife and Countryside Act. It's often confused with harmless cow parsley until the damage is already done. Landowners aren't automatically breaking the law by having it on their property, but letting it spread is treated seriously, and the plant is classified as controlled waste once removed. That means throwing cuttings in a normal bin isn't an option. Every summer, local news reports fresh cases of children hospitalized after countryside walks near riverbanks. Specialist removal teams wear full protective suits just to approach it safely. For something that looks like an oversized garden flower, giant hogweed remains one of Britain's most physically dangerous plants hiding in plain sight. Number 4. The houseplant behind cocaine. An online seed listing advertised it as an exotic tropical curiosity. Nothing more. What arrived in the post was a coca plant, the source material for cocaine, and simply germinating the seeds is a serious criminal offense under the Misuse of Drugs Act 1971. The plant itself is unremarkable, with small oval leaves and a slender reddish stem that could pass for any ordinary shrub found on a garden center shelf. That's precisely the problem. Overseas sellers rarely mention that shipping it to a British address puts the buyer at risk of prosecution the moment it sprouts. And most buyers never think to check the legal status of a plant before it arrives. Some collectors have argued in court that they intended it purely as a botanical specimen, grown for curiosity rather than any drug-related purpose. Judges haven't accepted that defense. Possessing seeds, growing the plant, or even keeping a single coca specimen as a houseplant on a windowsill is treated identically to Class A drug cultivation, regardless of scale or stated intention. Border officials have intercepted seed packages before they even reach a buyer's door, flagged through routine screening rather than any obvious warning sign on the packaging. Once a package does slip through, the responsibility shifts entirely onto whoever plants it, since the law places no weight on whether the buyer knew what they were ordering. Unlike ornamental cacti or unusual ferns, there's no gray area to hide behind here. The law doesn't distinguish between a windowsill hobbyist and someone attempting extraction. For anyone tempted by rare plant collecting, coca remains one purchase that can turn a harmless hobby into a police interview within days, with no defense strong enough to undo it. Number 5. The mushroom growing in sheep fields. Britain's pastures are full of them every autumn, small brown mushrooms scattered across grazing land that millions of people walk past without a second glance. Magic mushrooms grow wild and legally across the countryside, yet the moment someone deliberately cultivates them, they cross into criminal territory. Under the Misuse of Drugs Act, the spores themselves are legal to buy and possess, since they contain no psilocybin. Germinate those spores, though, and the resulting mushrooms become a controlled substance. It's one of the strangest contradictions in British drug law: legal in the field, illegal in a growing box. People have been prosecuted for cultivating small personal quantities indoors, with maximum penalties reaching life imprisonment for cultivation intended for supply. The wild mushrooms scattered across sheep fields carry no such risk, since nature growing them isn't a human action. What makes this law so easy to misunderstand is the sheer contrast. A countryside walk past naturally growing psilocybin mushrooms breaks no law whatsoever. Setting up a mushroom bed with inoculated spores at home does. The line between legal and illegal here isn't about the plant, it's about intent. Number 6. The pink flower that explodes. Riverbanks across Britain turn pink every summer, with clusters of hooded flowers that look almost decorative enough for a bouquet. Himalayan balsam earned its nickname policeman's helmet, from its shape, but its real signature is violence. Each seed pod explodes on contact, flinging up to 800 seeds, several meters in every direction. Under the Wildlife and Countryside Act, growing it in a garden isn't illegal, provided it stays contained. The problem is that it almost never does. Once established near water, the explosive seed dispersal makes control nearly impossible, and volunteer groups now spend entire weekends each year pulling it from riverbanks before it flowers. What began as an ornamental Victorian import has become one of the most aggressive invasive plants choking British waterways. Letting it escape a garden boundary and spread into the wild is where the legal violation begins, and it's remarkably easy to miss the moment it happens. For gardeners near any water source, the safest choice is simple. Remove every plant before flowering season begins. Wait too long, and by the time the pods start popping, the legal and ecological damage is already done. Number 7. The pond plant that kills everything. It was sold as the ultimate low-maintenance pond plant, floating gently, needing no soil, providing natural shade for fish. Within weeks, gardeners discovered water fern was nearly indestructible, and Britain classified it as banned under the Wildlife and Countryside Act. The plant forms dense mats across ponds and lakes, blocking sunlight and starving everything beneath of oxygen. What starts as a pretty green carpet on a garden pond becomes a dead zone within a single growing season. Owners are legally required to control it and prevent any spread into natural waterways. And disposal isn't straightforward either. Even the smallest fragment can regenerate into a fresh infestation, which is exactly why it spreads so aggressively once established. Garden centers have long since stopped stocking it, but older ponds sometimes still carry it, unnoticed for years, until it suddenly explodes across the surface. For something marketed purely as decoration, water fern has quietly become one of the most disruptive aquatic species in British ponds. Anyone who finds it growing is required by law to act, not admire it. Number 8. The fern growing 20 centimeters a day. Speed is the defining feature of floating pennywort, a plant capable of growing 20 centimeters in a single day and doubling its total mass in under a week. Round, lily pad-like leaves make it look charming, floating across a garden pond, right up until it escapes. Banned entirely under Schedule 9 of the Wildlife and Countryside Act, pennywort has become one of Britain's most expensive invasive species to manage. The Environment Agency spends more than £1 million annually just trying to keep it out of rivers and canals, where it clogs waterways, blocks navigation, and worsens flooding. Selling it, growing it, or allowing it to spread from a property are all against the law. Once it reaches open water, removal becomes a battle against time, since every broken fragment can root and grow into an entirely new infestation within days. What makes pennywort particularly dangerous for gardeners is how quickly a small, seemingly controlled pond feature turns into an ecological crisis. A single mild summer is often all it takes for pennywort to outgrow any illusion of containment. Number 9. The unkillable waterweed. Aquarium and pond retailers once sold parachute plant as a hardy, attractive addition to any water feature. That same hardiness is exactly why it's now banned from sale and cultivation entirely across Britain. The plant tolerates almost anything: drought, being out of water for extended periods, and any water depth imaginable. Fragments smaller than a fingernail can regenerate into full new plants, which means partial removal efforts almost always fail. Once established in a pond, eradication typically requires draining the entire body of water and treating the remaining substrate with herbicide. Dense underwater carpets form quickly, crowding out native plants and collapsing biodiversity in affected ponds to almost nothing. Under the Wildlife and Countryside Act, knowingly allowing it to grow on a property carries legal responsibility to act, and specialist contractors often charge thousands of pounds, even for modest garden ponds. For a plant once marketed as low maintenance, parachute plant has become a case study in how convenience for gardeners can translate directly into ecological disaster for everyone downstream. Number 10. The giant leaf taking over wetlands. Massive leaves and dramatic yellow flowers made American skunk cabbage a favorite for bog gardens and ornamental pond edges throughout the 20th century. Contained in a garden, it breaks no law. The trouble is that it rarely stays where it's planted. Each plant produces thousands of seeds that travel easily through water, and once established in wet woodlands or marshes, skunk cabbage crowds out native vegetation across entire habitats. Planting it directly into the wild is illegal under Schedule 9 of the Wildlife and Countryside Act, even though owning a single contained specimen in a garden pond isn't. The distinction matters enormously for anyone living near wetlands. A bog garden feature that looks striking in July can quietly seed a nearby marsh by autumn, turning a decorative choice into an ecological violation without the owner realizing it happened. Number 11. The purple flower. Britain can't escape. Drive through Scotland or Wales in early summer, and purple rhododendron blooms seem to belong there, filling woodlands and roadside verges with color. Few visitors realize they're looking at one of Britain's most damaging invasive species, one that's illegal to deliberately plant in the wild under the Wildlife and Countryside Act. Rhododendron ponticum produces millions of seeds annually and creates dense shade so complete that almost nothing else can grow beneath it. Entire hillsides in Scotland have been swallowed by impenetrable thickets, and conservation groups now spend millions of pounds every year on clearance programs trying to reverse the damage. Growing it in a private garden isn't against the law. The offense begins the moment someone deliberately introduces it into woodland, moorland, or any natural setting, something that happened so frequently over the past century that undoing it has become a national conservation project. What looks like a lovely flowering shrub in a garden center catalog has, over decades, become a case study in how ornamental planting decisions can permanently reshape entire landscapes. Number 12. The shrub classified as a drug. Glossy, evergreen, and entirely unremarkable to look at. Heart could pass for any ordinary hedge plant. Since 2014, it's been classified as a controlled substance under the Misuse of Drugs Act, making both the plant and its leaves illegal to possess in Britain. Chewing fresh cut leaves carries deep cultural significance across East Africa and Yemen, but that tradition carries no legal protection once the plant crosses into Britain. Cathinone, the stimulant compound within its leaves, is treated identically to other Class C controlled substances, regardless of the intention behind growing it. Overseas online sellers occasionally list khat as an exotic ornamental shrub, leaving out any mention that importing or cultivating it is a criminal offense. Buyers who assume it's simply an unusual houseplant discover otherwise only after customs or police intervene. For a plant with no particularly striking appearance and no obvious warning signs, khat represents one of the clearest examples of how cultural legality abroad means nothing once a plant reaches British soil. Number 13. The sage that's actually a hallucinogen. Dozens of salvia species sit happily in British herb gardens, entirely legal and commonly sold at garden centers. Hidden among them is one specific Mexican species, Salvia divinorum, containing a hallucinogen powerful enough to fall under the Psychoactive Substances Act, 2016. Unlike the culinary sage most gardeners recognize, this particular species produces salvinorin A, and producing, supplying, or importing it for human consumption is a criminal offense. Personal possession sits in a technical gray area, but growing it with any intent tied to consumption crosses firmly into illegal territory. The confusion stems from how visually unremarkable the banned species looks compared to dozens of legal salvia varieties available at any nursery. Collectors of unusual salvia specimens have unknowingly cultivated the wrong one simply because labeling online rarely distinguishes clearly between species. Anyone drawn to rare or unusual plants should check botanical names with real care before buying anything listed under the salvia genus from unfamiliar sellers, since one wrong purchase can turn an innocent hobby into a legal problem overnight. Number 14. The legal flower with an illegal secret. Cottage gardens across Britain are filled every summer with tall, papery blooms in purple, pink, and white. Opium poppies, grown entirely legally as ornamental flowers. Few gardeners realize how close that legality sits to a serious criminal offense. Under the Misuse of Drugs Act 1971, simply growing the flowers is permitted. The moment someone scores the seed pods or collects the latex inside, intending to extract morphine or codeine, they've crossed into opium production, a completely different legal category, carrying real prosecution risk. Prosecutions for ornamental growers remain rare in practice, since authorities generally understand the difference between a flower border and a drug operation. That informal tolerance doesn't change what the law technically permits, and it leaves the entire situation sitting in a gray area that few gardeners think twice about. For the millions of British gardens containing poppies purely for their appearance, the line between legal cottage garden staple and criminal offense comes down entirely to what happens after the petals fall, not the flower itself. Number 15. The cactus, treated like cocaine. Slow-growing and visually unremarkable, peyote could sit unnoticed among any cactus collection for years. That unassuming appearance hides a legal classification as serious as any hard drug, since peyote contains mescaline and falls under the Misuse of Drugs Act as a Class A controlled substance. Collectors sometimes convince themselves that owning one or two specimens for their appearance alone isn't a serious matter, especially given how many other cacti sit legally on garden center shelves. The law makes no such distinction. Possessing peyote seeds or plants in any quantity is treated identically to possessing Class A drugs. Online plant marketplaces occasionally list peyote without clear legal warnings, particularly from overseas sellers unfamiliar with British restrictions. Buyers drawn purely by rarity or novelty often discover the legal reality only after the purchase has already been made. Among all the plants covered here, peyote carries perhaps the starkest mismatch between appearance and consequence. An ordinary-looking cactus, treated by British courts with the same seriousness as hard narcotics. Number 16. The vine behind a banned brew. Interest in ayahuasca, the hallucinogenic brew used in South American spiritual ceremonies, has grown steadily across Britain in recent years. The plants behind it, Banisteriopsis caapi and Psychotria viridis, occupy a genuine legal gray area that catches many collectors off guard. Neither plant is explicitly banned by species. The compound DMT found within Psychotria viridis, however, is a Class A controlled substance, and preparing or possessing the brewed result carries the same legal weight as any other Class A offense. Some growers argue they're simply cultivating botanical specimens, never processing them for consumption, and courts have generally accepted that distinction where there's no evidence of preparation. The moment any processing toward consumption occurs, that legal shelter disappears entirely. Growing interest in ayahuasca for therapeutic or spiritual purposes hasn't shifted the law's position, since British legislation doesn't recognize personal development or religious practice as valid grounds for possessing controlled substances. For anyone drawn to these plants purely as unusual specimens, the safest path is treating them as ordinary botanical curiosities and nothing more, since the line into criminal territory is thinner than most people assume. Number 17. The fern banned across continents. Delicate and unassuming on the surface, giant salvinia has earned a reputation as one of the world's most destructive aquatic weeds, capable of doubling its biomass every few days once established in open water. With no natural predators in Britain, salvinia can blanket an entire pond or lake surface within weeks, blocking sunlight completely and turning thriving water into a biological dead zone underneath. Even possession alone can carry significant fines, regardless of intention. Online aquarium sellers occasionally list it, despite the restrictions, frequently shipping from overseas suppliers who either don't know or don't mention British legal requirements. Buyers assuming they've purchased an ordinary decorative floating plant sometimes only discover the legal reality after it's already established in their pond. Anyone purchasing aquatic plants for a garden pond should verify legal status before introducing anything new to the water, since salvinia's innocent appearance gives no hint of how quickly it can destroy an entire ecosystem once it takes hold. Number 18. The flower that clogged a nation's rivers. Purple flowers and thick, spongy leaves made water hyacinth look like the perfect natural filtration system for garden ponds when it was first marketed decades ago. What followed was one of the most destructive invasive species events recorded in aquatic ecosystems worldwide. Doubling its population roughly every 2 weeks, water hyacinth can completely clog waterways, halt boat traffic, and starve fish of oxygen as it spreads. The damage caused to water systems and fisheries has run into millions of pounds in affected regions, and it's now banned across most jurisdictions that once permitted its sale. Even possessing water hyacinth today can carry significant fines, a stark reversal from its earlier marketing as an attractive, low-effort ornamental. Its rapid growth rate leaves almost no window for gardeners to notice a problem before it's already out of control. Few plants demonstrate quite as clearly how quickly an appealing garden feature can transform into one of the most dangerous invasive species on record, given the right conditions and enough time left unchecked. Number 19. The tobacco loophole, nobody knows fragrant, evening blooming, and entirely legal ornamental tobacco plants sit in flower borders across Britain without raising any concern. The legal complication begins only if anyone processes the plant material for smoking, triggering tobacco products duty under HMRC regulations. Since 1992, anyone growing tobacco for personal consumption has technically been required to register with HMRC and account for duty owed, a requirement almost no home gardener could realistically satisfy. Prosecution for a handful of ornamental plants in a flower border is highly unlikely, but growing substantial quantities and processing them risks drawing HMRC attention over suspected duty avoidance. Tobacco duty represents one of the government's largest sources of revenue, which explains why the regulations remain so deliberately restrictive, even for small-scale personal use. Most gardeners avoid the entire issue simply by treating ornamental tobacco purely as a decorative flower, never touching the leaves beyond admiring them. The gap between legal ornamental cultivation and illegal unlicensed tobacco production is murky enough that most people never test where the line actually sits. Number 20. beetle nut palm. Elegant and tropical, beetle nut palm looks entirely at home in any conservatory collection. Hidden within its nuts is arecoline, a psychoactive stimulant that places the plant in one of the strangest legal gray areas covered here. Growing the palm itself as an ornamental houseplant carries no legal risk whatsoever. Harvesting and chewing the nuts, a practice with deep cultural roots across South and Southeast Asia, potentially falls under the Psychoactive Substances Act, 2016, a law deliberately written broadly enough to catch substances never traditionally treated as controlled. This creates genuine legal limbo for anyone growing the palm purely for its nuts rather than its appearance, since prosecution depends heavily on how authorities choose to interpret current legislation in any given case. Traditional practice offers no legal protection once the plant is grown and used within Britain. Beetle nut palm closes out this list as perhaps the clearest example of how broadly written modern drug legislation can transform an ordinary conservatory plant into a genuine legal question mark. From a single cannabis plant behind a shed to a conservatory palm with a hidden legal question mark, these 20 crops prove that British gardening law is far stranger than most homeowners realize. Some offenses carry unlimited fines. Others carry the threat of 14 years in prison. A few simply demand that gardeners act responsibly before a decorative choice becomes an ecological disaster for everyone downstream. Derek's allotment case, the riverbank burns, the mortgage-crushing root systems, all of it points to one simple truth: knowing what's actually growing in a garden matters more than most people think. If this opened your eyes to what's hiding behind your own fence line, subscribe for more and stay with us. We're uncovering more truths your garden's been keeping from you.